Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tutorlini Test Prep. Today I'll be providing a full walkthrough of the Digital SAT Math Practice Test number 8. I highly recommend you complete the exam yourself in the Blue Book app before watching this video. Let's get started with Module 1. Okay, this is the beginning of Module 1, Question 1. So it wants us to find the y-intercept, so I'm going to look along the y-axis and see where the function touches the y-axis. Looks like it happens right here. Now I read the graph, and that is at 0, comma, positive 8, which gives us answer choice D. Okay, question 2. So the question wants us to find the function value when x equals negative 8. So we're going to replace all the x's with negative 8. In other words, just find f of negative 8. So I'm going to do f of negative 8 equals negative 3 times negative 8 plus 60. Negative 3 times negative 8 is 24. 24 plus 60 is 84. And that gives us answer choice D. We can also do this on Desmos. Let's go do that. Okay, so I type in the function, and then on the next line, I type in f of negative 8. And I get 84. Alternatively, if you didn't make the connection with the function notation, you could just literally type in x equals negative 8 and see where that vertical line touches. And you see it also happens at a y value of 84. Okay, question 3. So for this one, I kind of see that we've got some 1 minute long segments, and x represents the number of 1 minute long segments. So that term that represent the total number of minutes from those segments, you just multiply them together. So 1 times x. So like, for example, if x were 5, you got 5 1 minute segments. 5 times 1 is 5, so 5 minutes of footage. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we could do the same thing with the 3 minute segments. So 3 minutes long, and y represents the number of 3 minute segments. So I'll do plus 3y to find the total number of minutes. 3y is, again, the total minutes from those segments. And they have to have a total length of 70. So again, kind of add them up and set them equal to 70. And 1x, 1 is the default coefficient, the implied coefficient. So I don't need to write 1x. I can just write this as x plus 3y equals 70. I just did that to show you guys where that was coming from. That gives us answer choice D. Okay, question 4. There's probably a couple ways to approach this one. Just reading this part here kind of sounds like a constant rate of change. So I'm going to write an equation of the line. So I'm going to make x the independent variable, the number of days. We often make time the independent variable. That's like usually pretty intuitive. Y, I'm going to make the ounces of water. And let's see what they tell me. So they say I have originally a bowl contains 20 ounces of water. I think that's the y-intercept. So it would be like 0, 20. On the 0th day, we have 20. So b, mx plus b is 20. That b is the y-intercept. This thing here is telling us the slope. So let's write some of this down. B equals 20. So slope is change in y over change in x. So in this case, the change in ounces over the change in days. So it says I decrease by 1 ounce. So that means the numerator is -1 every 4 days. So that means the denominator is 4. -1 divided by 4 is -1/4. So I've got m equals -1/4. The equation of this line, mx plus b, is y equals -1/4 x plus 20. Now let's see what the question is asking. It says 9 ounces of water. That sounds like a y value. I made y the ounces, so y equals 9. I'm going to make y equals 9 and then solve for x. So 9 equals -1/4 x plus 20. I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. And I get -11 equals -1/4 x. And then I'll divide both sides by -1/4. And I get x equals 44, which gives us answer choice D. So I don't think it's worth using regression or anything because they pretty much just gave us the slope and the y-intercept. But if you wanted to save a little bit of time on that last calculation, You could just type in the equation of the line and then type in y equals 9. And then see where they meet, and you see that happens when x equals 44 days. Okay, question 5. I go over this in great detail in my Ottocento number 9 on basic statistics. Most people taking the SAT don't take a statistics course, so you should probably go watch that video. I also have a short on standard deviation. So we're just going to compare the two standard deviations of these dot plots. I noticed that if I ignore the numbers, right, if I just look at the spatial orientation, they're arranged exactly the same. See how I have a 1, followed by a 1, followed directly by 3, and so on. It just goes on. It's arranged exactly the same. So if two dot plots are arranged identically, then they have the same standard deviation. So let's see if there's an answer choice that says that. It says is equal to the standard deviation of class B, so the answer is B. Worth mentioning that the mean and median would not be the same. The mean and median of class B would be bigger. Maybe it's like 17, 18, something like that. But here the mean and median is maybe like 4 or 5. So the mean and median would be different, but the standard deviation is the same. Okay, question 6. So when we subtract polynomials, we have to be very careful to distribute the minus sign to this parentheses on the right. So we've got 7x cubed plus 7x minus 6x cubed. And then negative times negative 3x, that's plus 3x. And now we can combine the like terms. So these ones go together, the x cubes go together. 7x cubed minus 6x cubed, that's 1x cubed, or just x cubed. And then 7x plus 3x, that is 10x, so plus 10x. And that is looking a lot like answer choice A. We can also do this on Desmos. Let's go do that. Okay, so for equivalent expressions with a single variable, we can just type in the original and then type in all the answer choices and see which one gives us the same graph. I just typed in the correct answer. If I toggle the color on and off, you see it perfectly replaces it. That means it has infinitely many solutions, which means the expressions are equivalent. I bet if you went and typed in BCD, it would not look the same as the red graph. Okay, question 7. The interior angles of a triangle must add up to 180 degrees. So I can add all these up. So 54 plus 90 plus k over 2 is equal to 180. 54 plus 90 is 144. 144 plus k over 2 equals 180. I'm going to subtract 144 from both sides. Get 36, so k over 2 equals 36. And now to move the 2, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. And I get k equals 72, which gives us answer choice C. Okay, question 8. This is testing us on the zero product property, which I go over in my Ottocento number 4 on factoring, so definitely go check that out. So I got a bunch of things multiplied together, equal to 0, zero product. So we can use the zero product property. I'm going to identify all the core factors, kind of ignoring any exponents. The exponents don't really matter. There are no exponents, it seems. First I see a 3. Can 3 ever be equal to 0? Well, the answer is no. 3 is just 3. It can never be equal to 0. Let's look at the next factor. X. Okay, x can be equal to 0. Okay, that's one of our solutions. Let's look at the next factor, x minus 4. Okay, so x minus 4 equals 0. If I add 4 to both sides, I get x equals 4. So that's another solution. And then x plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 5 from both sides to get x equals negative 5. Okay, now I'm going to look at all the choices and see if any of those show up. And it looks like 0 shows up. So that is answer choice B. We could also do this on Desmos. Let's go do that. So because this equation is a cubic, Desmos is not going to let us click on the solutions if we just type it in as is. So we're going to break it up as a system. I go over this in my Desmos videos. So y equals left-hand side, and then y equals right-hand side. In this case, the right-hand side's just 0. All right, now we can look where the red meets the blue. And we get x values, which are the solutions of -5, 4, and 0, which is exactly what we got doing it by hand. Okay, question 9. So we're making a mixture of pure acetic acid and water. And it says we have a total volume. The mixture has a volume of 56 milliliters. So the acid plus the water must be 56. The volume of acetic acid, they say, is 10. So 10 plus the water is equal to 56. And I subtract 10 from both sides, and I get the water is 46 milliliters, which is the answer. Okay, question 10. I go over unit conversions in great detail in my Ottocento number 2 on unit conversions. Definitely go check that out if you haven't already. Just going to assume you've already watched that. All right, so I'm going to start with 354 furlongs. And then I'm going to set up a parenthesis, and I'm going to look for the unit that has furlongs in it. Well, the first one has furlongs in it, so let's use that first. So I'll put furlong on the bottom. That way, 1 furlong on the bottom and then 220 yards on the top. That way, furlongs cancels because they're on opposite side of the fence, opposite sides of the division bar. And now I'm left with units of yards, but I want feet, so I got to keep going. So I'll set up another parenthesis. And now I will put, using similar logic, put 1 yard on the bottom and 3 feet on top. And now yards is on opposite sides of the division sign, so those cancel. If they didn't cancel, I would just switch the 3 feet and the 1 yard. Maybe I just have it backwards. You see, you got a 50-50 chance of doing it right every time, so just check. And now if we compute this, we have units of feet. So what I suggest you do is, for every unit conversions problem, even if it seems like an easy one, is you type it in exactly as written, because you're going to get harder ones, and you'd hate to do all this work and then get it wrong because you'd made an arithmetic error. There's no reason to just not type in exactly what you wrote down. Garbage in, garbage out. All right, so I'm getting 233,640 feet. And that is looking a lot like answer choice D. Okay, question 11. Guys, I go over this in great detail in my Ottocento number 6 on linear systems. Please, it is one of the most important topics on the test, and I think it's the best video I've ever made. Please go watch it before you come back and watch this segment. All right, so both of these lines are in slope-intercept form, so I can just compare the slopes and the intercepts. So the slope of the first one is 2. The slope of the second one is also 2. So I have the same slope. Now let's look at the y-intercepts. The y-intercepts of the first one is 10, and the y-intercept of the second one is -1. Those are different, so I have different y-intercepts. According to the table that I go over in that video, when we have the same slopes and different y-intercepts, that gives us no solution. Another way to phrase that is to say they intersect 0 times. No solution means 0, so that is answer choice A. We could also do this on Desmos, so let's go do that. Okay, this one's not so bad. I just type in the 2 lines. I notice that they're parallel, that they never cross, so they have 0 points of intersection or no solution. Okay, question 12. So I go over this in my Ottocento number 1 on percents, and I actually go over an equation that you can like memorize to specifically tackle these types of questions, but it's probably not worth it, honestly. You might be better off just doing words to math. There's already so much stuff you need to memorize. So let's just go left to right. So 13 means equals E% of. So what I do is when I have a percent of, I divide by 100. and change the of to multiplication. And then it says 25. So now I just solved this equation. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 100. I get 1300 equals p times 25, or just 25p. I'm going to divide both sides by 25. And I get 52 equals p, which is the answer. Let's see if we can do this on Desmos too. Okay, so I'm just going to type in this equation verbatim, just with an x instead of a p. So 13 equals x%, and then the of will pop up. I can put 25. And now I just need to zoom out. And we get 52. Okay, question 13. Please, 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 guys, go watch my 3 shorts on this equation. It is super important. They ask it probably on every exam. They're called exponentials plus time. There's 3 of them. Please go watch those before you watch this. All right, so the equation this testing on is y equals a times b to the t over n, where a is the initial value, b is the multiplier, and n is the interval. So I'm going to just interpret what this equation is saying before I even worry about the question. That's what you should do, because you might get tricked, right? You might get confused why it's asking if you don't take the time to do that. So A is 60,000. So there's 60,000 bacteria initially. The multiplier is 2, which means to multiply by 2. We could interpret that as a percent, but often when you see like 2 or 3, you just say double or triple. So how about we just say double? They double every, and the interval is 410. And what's the units of time in that function? Let's see, t minutes, okay? So 410 minutes. Got to pay very close attention to the units for time, because they change those up to try to trick us. Okay, so I've just interpreted what the equation's saying. Now let's look at the question. How much time in minutes does it take for the number of bacteria to double? Okay, so it wants it in minutes. How long does it take to double? Well, we wrote that down. It's already just 410 minutes. You see, we weren't really expected to do anything with that function. They just wanted to make sure we understood what it was saying. All right, great. Let's keep going. Okay, question 14. So first of all, I notice it says increases. So right away, the ones that say decreasing, those are wrong. So it's between C and D, and there's a trap answer that everyone tends to pick, and I'll tell you why. So the key word here is it says increases by 49%. And then it says of its value the previous year. So that is an exponential function. So the answer is C. So let me show you what they do to tend to try to trick us. So let's say we started with $50, right? The multiplier for a 0.49% increase would be 1.0049. So the next year we have 50 times 1.0049. So 50.245. And then the next year we have about 50.491. And you'll notice it's not going up by the same amount. It's getting multiplied, so it's exponential. What they'll tend to say is, guys, this is really important. If they say, of the original amount, then that's linear, because the original amount isn't changing. The previous amount is changing, but the original amount isn't changing. So if I did 0.49% of, let's say, 50, for example, that would be 0.245. So we would just be adding 0.245 each time. Even though increases kind of sounds like it should be multiplication, increase can also be used to refer to addition, right? So 50 plus 0.245, I would get 50.245. And then if you do it again, we get 50.49, and you see that's going up by a constant amount. So pay really close attention. If you see previous year, it's probably exponential. If you see percent of the original amount, it's probably linear. Okay, question 15. So I have a short going over equation of a circle. Definitely go check that out. I'm just going to see if you've already watched that. This little equation they gave us mirrors the equation of a circle. Exactly. So r, in this case, is just the radius. So the question is asking us because it's r squared on the right side, which is in the equation of the circle, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So r is just the radius. They're not trying to trick us. So r is the radius. So we just got to find the radius. So if you plotted those 2 points, 2, 4, they would be right on top of each other because they're both at x equals 2. So you could use the distance formula, but when a segment is straight up and down or straight left and right, you can quickly find the distance by subtraction. So this, it says diameter with endpoints. So the distance between them will tell me the diameter. So the diameter is, if I just do positive subtraction, the positive difference, 14 minus 4, and I get 10. The radius is half the diameter, so half of 10 is 5. Why don't we go type this into Desmos just to make sure we did it right. Okay, so I typed in the equation, then I typed in our answer, r equals 5, and then I typed in the 2 diameter endpoints. And you see, those certainly look like a diameter, so it seems like we did a good job. Okay, guys, this is one of the most commonly misunderstood topics. Please go watch my video on it. It's called Ottocento number 12, Sine and Cosine Properties. All right, so the question tells us that r, the sum of the measures of angle r and s is 90. So I'll just write that kind of informally. R plus s equals 90. So that means the two angles are complementary. We know from my video that the sine of one angle must be equal to the cosine of the other. So there's two equations we can write. We can write sine of r equals cosine of s. And we can similarly write cosine of r equals sine of s. Maybe you're noticing the first one pretty much exactly mimics the question, so we're going to use that one. So I'll come over here, sine of r equals cosine x. Well, they told me sine of r is root 15 over 4, so root 15 over 4 must be equal to cosine s. And that is looking like answer choice B. Okay, question 17. This is a literal equations question. We look where it says this very important phrase in terms of, and the thing that comes right before it is the thing we want to get by itself. In this case, 4j plus 9. So I see 4j plus 9 right there. Now, when the desired quantity is in the denominator, we really don't like that. You want to get it out of the denominator. So probably the easiest way to do that is to just multiply both sides by that thing. So I'm going to be very meticulous here about multiplying both sides by that quantity. I'm going to try to show you guys my algebra so you can follow along. All right, so these guys go away, and I get 4j plus 9 times p equals k. All right, now that I've got him out of the denominator, I just want to look at whatever's on the same side of him and move that away. So the only thing that's on the side with the 4j plus 9 is the p. The p is being multiplied. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by p. And this guy goes away. And I get 4j plus 9 equals k over p. And that is looking a lot like answer choice A. Okay, question 18. So I think this one's far easier to do on Desmos, but just in case you guys are curious, you pretty much have to guess and check if you're going to do it by hand. I'm going to go over this one just to illustrate the idea. So 321, y is 21. So 21 greater than 13 times 3 minus 18. Okay, 13 times 3 is 39. Minus 18 is 21. So I get 21 is greater than 21. 21 is not greater than 21. So right away, this one is wrong. And you would go through and do that for all of them. Whichever one has all three correct, true inequality statements, that's the answer. Let's go and type it into Desmos. Okay, this is choice A. As you can see, the points lie on the boundary line. Because it's a dashed line, that is not acceptable. If it were a solid line, it would be part of the solution set. But because it's on the dashed line, it's no good. Let's look at the other choices. Okay, B has 1 in the solution set, 1 outside, and then 1 on the dashed line. So it's got 2 points that are no good. So B is also wrong. Okay, C is looking like all 3 points are outside the solution set, so that one's wrong too. Okay, D is looking good. All 3 points are in the shaded region. So that is our answer. Okay, question 19. So to tackle this, we're going to need to find the slope of line L, which is going to be from this equation here. So how about we go and try to put it in slope-intercept form? We're going to try to get the y by itself. So first, we'll move the 12x term to the other side. So we'll subtract 12x from both sides. And we get 3y equals negative 12x plus 5. And now to move to 3, we're going to divide both sides by 3. We can just divide every single term by 3. And we get y equals negative 4x plus 5/3. That's the equation for line L. And now regarding line N, it says they are perpendicular. So perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. The slope of this line is negative 4. So if you want, you could write that as like negative 4 over 1. And then the opposite reciprocal, the perpendicular slope, we flip it and we change the sign. So instead of 4 over 1, it's 1/4. And instead of negative, it's positive. So positive 1/4. And that is the answer. Let's go type this into Desmos just to make sure we did it right. Okay, guys, I typed in line L, and then for line N, I just picked a random y-intercept, like how about 9? They didn't tell us what point goes through it, so I just picked a random y-intercept. You can put whatever you want. This is just that you can see you can eyeball it. It kind of looks like perpendicular. It should look like a perfect T. It's not very scientific. This isn't going to work 100% of the time, but if it looks like a cross, that's a good sign that you probably got the slope correct. Something I want to point out here is that lots of people, myself included, would use the slope formula for ax plus by equals c. Standard form, the slope is negative capital A over capital B. If you did that here, you might have messed up because you see, they mixed up the x and the y. They changed the order to try to trick people, so just be really careful with that. If you were to do it that way, you'd have to first rewrite it as 12x plus 3y equals 5 so that it's in the right order. Okay, question 20. So I suppose we should first talk about what unique and distinct mean. So let's say I had the numbers 2, 2, 2, and 14. Okay, those are not distinct or unique numbers because I have repeats. I have repeating 2s. Okay, but let's say I had 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are distinct or unique constants because none of them repeat. But hopefully that makes sense. I don't think it's super important to the question. Just don't let that confuse you. All right. So we want to find x-intercepts. So to find an x-intercept, we always set y equal to 0. So we're going to set y equal to 0 and get 0 equals this big mess. 2x minus d, x plus d, x plus g, and x minus d. And now we're going to use the zero product property. We have 5 core factors. So we have 2, but 2 can never be equal to 0, so we don't need to worry about him. But we should be concerned with these other ones. So I've got x minus d. So x minus d equals 0. And then we've got x plus d equals 0. And then we've got x plus g equals 0. And then we've got, again, x minus d equals 0. So the x-intercepts, if we add d to both sides, I get x equals d. If I subtract d from both sides, I get x equals negative d. If I subtract g from both sides, I get x equals negative g. And then if I add d to both sides, I get x equals d. You will notice, oh, wait a minute. We have a repeat. D shows up twice. So the number of unique x-intercepts I have, well, I have d, I have minus d, and I have minus g. So there are 3, which gives us answer choice B. D and minus d could be the same if d were 0, but notice how in the question we don't have to worry about that. It says positive constants, so we're good. I think if we picked valid values for this, we could do it on Desmos. Let's go do that. Okay, I just typed the equation in, and it says d and g are unique positive constants. So how about I make d equals 2 and g equals 5. And, you zoom out a bunch just to make sure there's not anywhere missing. And I look, and there are 3 unique x-intercepts, just like we got doing it by hand. Okay, question 21. Please, 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 guys, go watch my Ottocento number 17, Constants on Display. It goes over this in great detail. It will make way more sense if you watch that first. All right, so first things first, I noticed that the question says equivalent forms. That is like super, super important. So what that means is that all the functions are the same thing. They're just written differently. So to figure out what f of 1 is, which the question wants me to find, I can use whichever choice I want. It's not the answer, but it'll help me figure out the answer. So I'm just going to pick, I don't know, they all look roughly the same. Why don't I go with either choice A or choice B? Why don't I do choice A just to show it works on any of them? So let's come over here. And I'm going to type in choice A. So f of x equals 50, 1.6 to the x plus 1. And it tells us that k is equal to f of 1. Okay, we just figured out that k is equal to 128. That sounds really important. Okay, let's come back over here. So no matter which one you picked, you would figure out that it's 128. And it says, which of the following shows the value? So we're just looking at all of these equations and seeing where we find a 128. Hopefully you guys are seeing there is a 128 right here in answer choice C. None of these other equivalent forms display a 128. So the answer is C. Okay, question 22. I go over this a lot in my Ottocento number 13 on basic quadratics. However, I don't know. You also need to know function translations, and how about I just put more emphasis on that, because that's more important probably. Most people probably remember the basics of quadratics from school. I don't know. Anyway, this is a terrible question to do by hand, but let's do it anyway really quick. So we want to find the value of x where g of x reaches its minimum. That's the x-coordinate of the vertex, which we call h. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first find the x-coordinate of the vertex of that function f of x. And it's in standard form, so I'm going to do h equals negative b over 2a. H is equal to negative 64 over 2 times 4, because a is 4. So we get negative 64 over 8. So h for function f, the x-coordinate of function f, is -8. So the vertex for f of x is -8, comma, question mark. I don't know. It doesn't matter, right? So now it says f of x plus 5. I go over this in the function translations video. G of x equals f of x minus h plus k. Different h here. H just means the horizontal shift. It doesn't mean the x-coordinate of the vertex. I'm referring to the horizontal shift. So you'll notice there's no k, nothing going on there, but there is an h. So we circle this number, and because there's a minus in front of the h, we have to change the sign. So the h, the shift, the horizontal shift is -5. In other words, 5 left. So if I move a point at -8 and I move it 5 to the left, in other words, just take away 5, the vertex of G will be -13, comma, question mark, which gives us answer choice A. We can do this far more easily on Desmos. Let's go do that. Okay, so I typed in the original function. Now I'm going to type in g of x equals f of x plus 5. And you'll notice it went 5 left, so we were right about that. And I'll hide the red function. We don't care about that anymore. And we see the vertex is -13, comma 6. So the x value where it reaches its minimum would be -13. And the minimum value of g of x would be 6. Okay, this is the beginning of Module 2A, question 1. So it says, what year is the percent of cars for sale the smallest? So I'm looking at the lowest point on the graph, which is right here. And the year that that takes place in is 2014, which is answer choice C. Okay, question 2. I go over this in great detail in my Ottocento number 2 on unit conversions. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. So whenever we see per in a unit, it means to divide the unit. So it's yards per second. So I'm going to write 64 yards per second. Now I'm going to set up a unit conversion. And now I'm going to use the conversion they give me. 1 yard equals 3 feet. So I'm going to put 1 yard on the bottom, so that yards is on opposite side of the division sign. And you'll notice when they're on opposite sides of the division sign, they cancel. And I'm left with feet per second, which is what we want, feet per second. So now all I have to do is compute this. 64 times 3 over 1, I would type it in your calculator exactly as it's written, is 192 feet per second. And that gives us answer choice D. Okay, question 3. So perimeter is the sum of all the sides. So it says the perimeter is 18. So 4 plus 6 plus the third side, which we don't know, I'll call that x, is equal to 18. Again, if you want to make a picture and that helps you, you can do that. Not a big deal. All right, so 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 plus x equals 18. And I subtract 10 from both sides, and I get x equals 8, which gives us answer choice B. Okay, question 4. So it says that the bus, we are interested when it is 2 seconds after passing the market. Reading the question carefully, I see that matches with what they tell me t is. This is basically telling me that t is equal to 2. So they give us this equation, t equals 30t. And I'm going to make t 2. 30 times 2 is 60. So we get d equals 60 feet, which is answer choice C. Okay, question 5. So $10 per hour. That sounds a lot like a slope. So that's probably going to go with the t hours. So I'm going to write 10t. And then we have a fixed cost for the service fee. That's like your y-intercept, like your b. So we could do plus 25. And then there's a keyword in here, maximum. That's an inequality keyword, which means less than or equal to. And then it says $75. So I'll put 75. And what we came up with is looking very similar to answer choice D. Okay, question 6. I go over this in great detail, guys, in my Ottocento number 20. It's called Probability and Two-Way Tables. Please, please, please go watch that. It will make way more sense. There's lots of problems you can try for yourself, including a worksheet that you can download. All right, so probability is desired over total. This question says, this is a key phrase I go over in the video. If a member is selected at random. Okay, so everyone in the table are members. So the total is going to be the grand total, which is in the bottom right of the table, which is 135. So I already know the denominator is going to be 135. And now for the desired, we want to find the probability the selected member is at least 40 years old. So that is here. And the amount of people that are at least 40 years old is 107. Everyone in this row is at least 40 years old, so there's 107. So the probability is 107 over 135, which is answer choice D. Okay, question 7. This is just the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. I can tell just by looking at it that b, the y-coordinate of the y-intercept, is -2. Y-intercepts always have an x of 0, so the coordinates are 0, -2, which is answer choice B. We can also do this on Desmos, so let's go do that. Okay, so I just typed in the function, and now I'm going to double-click on the y-intercept. And it tells me 0, -2. Okay, question 8. So they tell me that g of x is equal to 25, so I'm going to take g of x and replace it with a 25. So 25 is equal to x squared plus 9. Again, very confusing. It's not asking you for g of 25. It's telling you g of x equals 25, not the same thing. Okay, so to solve this, I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. I get 16 equals x squared. And then I'm going to take the square root of both sides, get rid of the square, and I get 4 equals x, but whenever I take the square root of both sides, I have to put a plus or minus sign. So possible answers are 4 and -4. I only see 4 as an option, so it must be A. We could do this on Desmos too, so let's go do that. Okay, so I typed in the function. I would suggest you could type in g of x equals 25 next, but I would suggest just getting in the habit of recognizing that the function we could just refer to as y. So that way the Desmos doesn't get confused. Why don't we type in y equals 25 just to make it a little easier. And now we will click where the red and blue meet. And we see that happens when x is -4 or when x is 4. Okay, question 9. We could guess and check, but I don't know, perhaps faster. They give us these 3 little black dots. Kind of hard to see on my screen here, guys, but you see there's like these 3 little black dots. So I'm just going to read each of those. So the rightmost one, how about I do the leftmost one first? That's 0, -5. Okay, the next one is 1, I think that's -3. And the next one is 2, -1. I bet those are the points they want us to look at. Let's look to see if there's any choices that have those. And I think that pretty much perfectly matches choice D, which is the answer. Okay, question 10. Probably the easiest thing to do here is to just recognize that corresponding angles are congruent. So I'm going to pick out all the corresponding angles, top left, top right, bottom left, and then bottom right. You see the 2 yellows go together. So that means this angle here is also 110 degrees. So now we can kind of forget about all that. And we see that these 2 angles form what's called a linear pair. In other words, they total 180 degrees. So I can write 110 plus x equals 180. Subtract 110 from both sides, and I get x equals 70, which is the answer. Okay, question 11. This one would like us to find the mean. And to find the mean of a list, we can use the equation mean equals sum over n. I have many videos going over this, especially my Ottocento number 9 on basic statistics, so definitely check that out. N is the number of values. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And to get the sum, I'll just do that on my calculator real quick. Okay, so I added up all the numbers in the list and I got 90. So that means the mean is 90 divided by 10, which is just 9. We can also do this on Desmos. Let's go do that. Okay, so I just typed in the word mean and then parenthesis and then the list exactly as it is from the question and then another parenthesis. And we also get 9. Okay, question 12. So this part here, f of 7 equals 28, is just a point using function notation. If it makes it easier for you to understand, just translate it back to an ordered pair form. So the x is inside the parentheses, and then the y is on the other side. So this is basically just the point. If you want, you can write f of x, you can write y equals 4x plus b. And the ordered pair is 7, 28. So now we put in 7 for x and 28 for y, and I get 28 equals 4 times 7 plus b. I get 28 equals 28 plus b. Subtract 28 from both sides, and I get 0 equals b. That gives us answer choice A. Another really easy way to tackle this one would probably be to graph the point and then guess and check. I put in the answer, 0, so you see it goes straight through the point. But if you put in another value of b, it probably will not go through that point. Okay, question 13. So basically, I'm going to take this equation, and I'm noticing that if I multiply this by 4, I will get 16x plus 8. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 4, and I get 16x plus 8 equals 48, which gives us choice B. We can also do this on Desmos, so let's go do that. Okay, so I type the equation in. The solution to the equation is 2.5. How about I type in A equals 2.5, and then we'll type in the expression we want, 16A plus 8, and I once again get 48. Okay, question 14. This is a linear quadratic system, so the strategy is usually to substitute for y. So what I'm going to do is, I notice really conveniently, I got y by itself for both of them. So I can substitute it and it'll just kind of like be gluing them together, right? So let's say I have x squared minus 5 equals 76. They must be equal to each other. To solve for x, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. X squared equals 81. And now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. X equals 9. But remember, when you take the square root of both sides in an equation, you got to put a plus or minus on the other side. So I'm looking for an answer choice that has positive 9 or negative 9 because it's asking for x. Be really careful. They totally could have asked you for y. All right, I see negative 9 as a choice, so we're going to pick B. We can also do this on Desmos, so let's go do that. Okay, I just typed in both equations, and now I'm just going to zoom out until I can see where they meet. I'm going to click on the points of intersection. And you see those happen at x is negative 9 and x is 9, just like we got. Okay, question 15. This is a linear system. A bunch of ways to do it. I'm noticing there is one variable by itself, like a loner variable. So I'm going to substitute for y. So I'm going to take this and plug it into the other equation. So I get 4x plus negative 3x is equal to 15. And 4x plus negative 3x is just 1x, or x. So the value of x must be 15, which is choice C. We can do this on Desmos as well, so let's go do that. Okay, I typed in both equations. Let's zoom out, see where they meet. 15, negative 45, so the x value is 15. Okay, question 16. This is very similar to a problem at the beginning of the module that we did. It's just a little bit harder because it's student-produced response. There's no answer choices. So we have 1025 per attendee. But if I call X the number of attendees, the amount she spends on those attendees is 10.25X. Hopefully that makes logical sense, making X the number of attendees, because the question asks us about that, right? So we'll call that X. Okay, and then we have a fixed cost. So she has a one-time fee. That's almost like a y-intercept. So mx plus b, 10.25x plus 35. And then it says we have a budget of $300. So budget, when you can't go over a budget, we typically use less than or equal to for that. A budget is just kind of like a real life word for maximum. So maximum you use less than or equal to. So we're going to do less than or equal to 300. Now we're going to solve this inequality. So I'm going to subtract 35 from both sides, and I get 10.25x is less than or equal to 265. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 10.25. And I get x is less than or equal to 25.8537, something like that. And now the question says, what is the greatest number possible? So lots of people would round up and they would say 26. But 26 is not less than or equal to 25.8, so that doesn't work. We can't have 25.8537 of a person. So we're going to make it the next smaller integer. So it will be, we're going to make x 25. So the answer is 25. If you were ever unsure, you can, again, try 25, try 26, see which one makes more sense. 26 is not less than or equal to 25.25. It's bigger, right? So that's a problem. You could also solve this inequality on Desmos. So why don't we do that real quick? Okay, so we're just going to type this in, 10.25x plus 35 less than or equal to 300. Going to zoom out. You see that's 25.83, whatever, what we got. So now I'll put the answers people were probably thinking of. So 25. If we zoom in, you see that's in the solution set, so that works. But then if you put 26, just some proof to you, you see if I zoom in, 26 is wrong. It's outside the solution set. Great. Okay, question 17. I go over this in my Ottocento number 4 on factoring. This is the skill that's in there called factoring with a equals 1. Definitely check that out. Really important for the test. You see I got this 1 in front. That means I can factor with a equals 1. So they must add, the two numbers I think of must add to 10 and multiply to negative 24. Well, the two numbers that do that, I believe, are 12 and negative 2. So I'm going to write z plus 12 times z minus 2. Let's just double check. 12 times negative 2 is negative 24. 12 plus negative 2 is 10. Looks good. So now I'm going to use the zero product property. Z plus 12 equals 0. Z minus 2 equals 0. And z plus 12, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. I get z equals negative 12. And I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and I get z equals 2. And it just says put one of the solutions, so how about I just put 2? We can also do this on Desmos, so let's go do that. Okay, so I just typed in the equation with x's instead of z's, and I zoomed out a little bit. And you see the solutions are negative 12 and 2, just like we got. Okay, question 18. This is testing us on basic exponentials, a times b to the x. A is the initial amount, which the problem tells us is 36,100. So anything with not a 36,100 in front, probably going to be wrong. So B and C are looking wrong. So now I might actually have to do some computations to figure out if 13, 68,071.93 is on the which of these, but you really don't have to do that. So you just need to understand what exponential growth and decay when they happen. So providing everything's positive, there's no curveballs or anything, exponential growth happens when b is greater than 1, and decay, decreasing, happens when b is between 0 and 1. So if we go from 36,100 to 68,000, we are growing. We are getting bigger. So b must be greater than 1, and the only one that has that is this one, 1.05. You see this b value. I don't even need to do the math. I know it's wrong because that would give decay. So in 13 years, you would have less than 36,100. So D doesn't make any sense. So D is wrong, but just for a different reason. The answer is A. I suppose you could also graph these and use that to figure that out, but I don't see how that would be any faster. Keep in mind, I'm just going slow for the sake of the explanation. Okay, question 19. I actually have a short on equilateral triangles, which goes over this in great detail. I would highly suggest you watch that before doing this question. Equilateral triangles. All right, so the perimeter of an equilateral triangle is 3s. So this means they tell us the perimeter is 624. So 624 equals 3s. If I divide both sides by 3, I get 208 is equal to the side length. Okay, so now I can start making our picture. So equilateral triangles, they have all 60 degrees. And we just figured out all the side lengths are 208. And if I draw a reference triangle, I go over this in the video, draw a height there. This becomes, I'll use this one on the left tab out, this becomes a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So this side is 2x. This side, across from 30, you can look on the reference sheet if you forget the special right triangle. Across from 30 is the x, and then the height, this side here, across from 60 is x root 3. So if 2x equals 208, that means that x is 104. You can also see down here, this will always happen for equilateral triangles. This side gets cut in half. See how it looks symmetrical? So if x is 104, that means this must be 104, and x root 3 must be 104 root 3. I go over this in my special right triangles video. And so the question's asking us for the height. So the height is 104 root 3. Hopefully you guys see when I hold up 104 root 3 next to what they told us, k root 3, that a is equal to 104, which is the answer. So big takeaway, if you didn't know this, again, go watch my short. Big takeaway is that if you draw a height in an equilateral triangle, it splits it into two congruent 30, 60, 90s. Okay, question 20. So it says here, really important, that arc PS is twice the length of arc PQ. I go over a lot of this. I go over this exact question, actually, in my Ottocento on circles. It's Ottocento number 18. Definitely go watch that. It will make way more sense. All right, so they tell me PS is twice the length of arc PQ. So why don't I make the smaller one, arc PQ? Why don't we call him X? And then twice that is PS, so we'll call him 2X. So I'll put a 2x on here. And because of vertical angles, these angles across from each other are equal. And as a result, their arcs are congruent. So hopefully it makes kind of intuitive sense. You see this one over here is also 2x, and this one up here is also x. So now the circumference is the sum of all the arcs. So all of this added up. It's very similar to perimeter, like of a triangle or a rectangle. So what we're going to do is we're going to do add them all up. So x plus 2x plus x plus 2x is equal to 144 pi. So x plus 2x plus x plus 2x is 6x. And now if I divide both sides by 6, I should get x equals 24 pi. So now I can go and add this to the picture. So this one is 24 pi, this one is 24 pi, and then these other ones are 24 times 2, so 48 pi. All right, so let's see, they want us to find QR. So that is this one over here, which we just said was 48 pi. And that is looking like answer choice B. Okay, question 21. This is a factoring question. I go over this in my Oecento number 4 on factoring. This is kind of a silly factoring question because they don't want us to pull out the greatest common factor, which in real life, you know, in actual math, we would never do, right? It's kind of silly. Like you notice, right, in the answer, 15 and 9, they still have a common factor, right? They still have a common factor of 3. Anyway, I digress. So why don't we just hold up 2 of them? So like 54 divided by 9, that's 6. So I bet they want us to pull out 6. And then what's the most amount of y's they have in common? 5, 4. So the most that they both share is 4, right? The left one's got 5, but the right one doesn't. They both have at least 4. So we'll pull out 6y to the 4th. And then we'll see what's left. Just divide both those by 6y to the 4th. So 90 divided by 6 is 15. So that would be 15y. And then 54y to the 4th. Okay, the y to the 4th go the way. 54 divided by 6 is 9. So we get minus 9. So this looks a lot like what they wanted us to do. So r must be 6. I don't know, kind of a silly question. Like I said, guys, almost always you're going to pull out the GCF. But if not, you can just take a quick peek at the expression and be like, what would I divide by to get that? And that'll hopefully help you figure it out. Okay, question 22. So it's talking about a right triangle. So I'm going to draw a right triangle. And it says the hypotenuse, that's the side across from the right angle. So the hypotenuse has a length of 196.8. Okay, so I'll put that here. And then one of the legs, so that's these 2 sides down here, the sides that are not the hypotenuse. So one of the legs is 43.2. So how about I call this one 43.2? And then I call the one we're trying to find x. All right, now I can use the Pythagorean theorem, which is on the reference sheet. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. I have a short going over this, I believe. Just make sure C is the hypotenuse and that A and B are the legs. So we're going to do 43.2 squared plus x squared equals 196.8 squared. And let's see. I could just use Desmos at this point if you really wanted to. You could just type that equation in. 190. This is such an important skill, though. All right, 38,730.24, something like that. Okay, so now I'm going to subtract 1866.24 from both sides. I'm getting x squared equals 36864. And now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And I get x is equal to 192, which is answer choice C. Okay, this is the beginning of Module 2B, question 1. So for this one, I'm going to just start solving this equation. The first thing I'm going to do is move the farthest thing first. The 6 is farther from the x than the 4. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. And that gives me 4x is equal to 12. And I can just stop there. I already see that that matches one of the answer choices, which is choice C. If you weren't sure what to do, you could type in the first equation, which I believe has solution of x equals 3. and then type in all the other equations into Desmos and see which one also has a solution of 3. Okay, question 2. So it says that X is the monthly payment, and then it also says that the monthly payment is $400. It's basically just telling us that X equals 400. Or in other words, we want to find f of 400. We replace all the x's with 400. So f of 400 equals 36 times 400 plus 1,000. And that should give us 36 times 400 is 14,400. 14,400 plus 1,000 is 15,400. Which gives us answer choice C. We can also do this question on Desmos, so let's go do that. Okay, so we just type the function in, and then you can put x equals 400, or how about more easily, we just type in f of 400, which gives us 15,400. Okay, question 3. So I go over this in great detail in my Ottocento number 5 on function translations. Please go watch it. Odds are, one of the most commonly misunderstood topics, odds are what I'm about to say isn't going to make any sense if you don't go watch it. So please go check that out, function translations. All right, there's 2 ways to do this one, and the second way is definitely way better, but I'm going to go over the first way just because someone's probably going to ask me, right? So the first way is to put it in slope-intercept form and treat it like a explicitly defined function. So I want to get y by itself. We're going to put it in slope-intercept form. Subtract 27x from both sides. I get 33y equals negative 27x plus 297. And then I divide everything by 33. Negative 27 over 33 is negative 9/11. And then 297 over 33 is 9. So we've got this line. And the y-intercept is 9. I don't even really need to use f of x minus h plus k, but hopefully you guys can kind of see that if the y-intercept is 9 and if I move down 5, so 9 and then down 5 would put me at 4, which is answer choice A. There's another way to do it that hopefully lets you cut out some of the algebra, so let's go over that now. So I go over this in the video I was mentioning. We notice that this is an implicitly defined relation because y is not by itself. So what we can do is we can replace x with x minus h and replace y with y minus k. So in this problem, h is 0 because we're not moving left or right at all. It doesn't mention that, right? But k is negative 5 because we're moving 5 down, and that's the negative y direction. So we're going to replace y with y minus negative 5, or in other words, y plus 5. And we're going to put that right here. So I get 27x plus 33 times y plus 5 equals 297. And now to find a y-intercept, we plug in x equals 0. So I'm going to do 27 times 0 plus 33y plus 5 equals 297. And I'm going to, this goes away, 33y plus 165 equals 297. And now I just solved this equation. So I subtract 165 from both sides. I get 33y equals 132. And then I divide both sides by 33. And I get y equals 4, which is what we got earlier as well. You'll notice what's great about this is that there was no fractions. I didn't have to do anything with fractions. That's nice. And you can also type this into Desmos really nicely. So let's go over that now. Okay, so I typed in my h and k values, and now I'm just going to type in the equation, 27x minus h plus 33y minus k. This is probably what I would have done on the exam, just because it's way faster. Okay, so I got that equation in there, and then I click on the y-intercept, and it's 0, 4. Okay, question 4. So when we have y equals mx plus b, b is the y-intercept. So here I see that b is -2. Y-intercepts always have an x value of 0. So the y-intercept is 0, -2, which gives us answer choice B. We can also do this on Desmos, so let's go do that. Okay, I just typed the function in, and now I'm going to click on the y-intercept, and we get 0, -2. Okay, question 5. So we are given two really important points, the y-intercept and the x-intercept. So I'm going to write those down, 0, 40, and 60, 0. Now, at this point, I would go and find the equation organically, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense because you'll notice there's multiple different forms in the answer choices. Like some of them are in standard form and some of them are in slope-intercept form. So we should probably, in the interest of time, just guess and check. So the y-intercept is 40. So when it's in mx plus b form, the b should be 40. And I'm noticing that this has a y-intercept of 12 and this has a y-intercept of 8. So both of those are wrong. Now I can use these intercepts to quickly guess and check between B and D. So let's try the first point on B. So 8 times 0 plus 12 times 40 equals 480. Okay, so 8 times 0 is 0, 12 times 40 is 480. That one looks good. We gotta check the other one though. So 8 times 60 plus 12 times 0 equals 480. Well, 8 times 60 is 480. That one looks good too. B must be the answer. Let's try D. So if we did the first one, 12 times 0 plus 8 times 40 equals 480. 8, 0, and then 8 times 40 is 320. So we get 320 equals 480. No, that is no good. So this one must be wrong. And we did a good job picking our answer. It doesn't really make sense to use regression for standard form of a line because there's like many pseudo-standard forms of a line, and it might not give you what you're looking for, but maybe you could type in your answer and just quickly check to make sure that it's right. I see it's got a y-intercept of 40 and x-intercept of 60, so everything looks good. Okay, question 6. So there is a trick to this one, and it is really hard to see. I think they did a good job designing this one. So basically, you see if I add the two equations, I get 12y, and I want 18y. Well, a good way to do that, to accomplish that, would maybe be to multiply one of the equations by 2. That way we get 6y and 12y, which gives us 18y. So the question is, do I multiply the top one or the bottom one? Well, if I multiply the top one by 2, I will get 18y when I add them, but I'll get 14 halves plus 5 halves, which is 19 halves x, and we want 17 halves x. So I'm thinking, this is just mostly a hunch, but I'm thinking we should multiply this bottom equation by 2. So so I have 7 halves x plus 6y equals 25. And now I'm going to leave it in terms of fraction just to make it easier later. 2 times 5 halves is 10 halves x. That's really 5, but I'm just leaving it in terms of halves because I know we're going to need that. 2 times 6y is 12y. And then 2 times 23 is 46. Now I can add these two equations, and I will get 7 halves x plus 10 halves x. That's 17 halves x plus 18y equals 25 plus 46, whatever that is. That is 71, which is the answer. I believe we can also do this one entirely on Desmos, so let's go do that. Okay, so I just typed in these two equations originally as they were. I click on where they meet, and I see it's at 2, 3. So that I can type it in, why don't I call the x-coordinate like a comma b, so a equals 2, b equals 3. And then we can type in the expression just with a's and b's. So 17 half, instead of x, we'll put a. And then 18, instead of y, we'll put b. And we also get 71. Okay, question 7. I go over how to deal with this function translation notation in my Ottocento number 5 on function translations. Definitely go check that out. It's Ottocento number 5. Anyway, so basically, if you do f of x minus h plus k, you see that there's no h, there's no number like next to the x. You see that, right? So that's just not important. But there is a k, and the k is -3. So that's telling us that it's a shift of 3 down. So let's write that expression. So it would be, I'll call it g of x is equal to f of x, which is just x plus 6, x plus 5, x minus 4. And then it says after f of x, do a -3. So I'll write -3. And now you kind of see for all these -6, -5, and 4, that all of these tables have those same values, -6, -5, and 4. So essentially, what happens is, whenever you put one of these numbers into this part of the function, it becomes 0. You see -6 plus 6, that's 0. 0 times anything is 0. -5 plus 5 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. 4 minus 4 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. So you're always going to get 0 and then -3. So all of these y values should be -3. 0 minus 3 is -3. So I'm thinking it's answer choice B. We could also just check this by graphing it on Desmos. So let's go do that. Okay, guys, so I just typed in the original function. Then I typed in g of x, or y, equals f of x minus 3. And then I made a table by clicking the plus and then clicking table. And then I just typed in the points for the answer choice. And if I hide the original function, we don't care about that. We see that all 3 of the points in answer choice B are on the function. So if you were really stuck, you could go through, all the x values are the same, right? You could go through and type in the other y values, -9, -8, 1, -3, -2, 7, and you'll probably find that some of those, or all of those, are not on the function. Okay, question 8. So I go over this I go over percents in my Ottocento number 1 on percents, but I have 3 shorts on exponentials plus time, and that's really more what this question is testing us on. So I would definitely go check those out. 3 of my shorts go over this equation, which I'm about to tell you right now. It's one of the most important equations on the test. So y equals a times b to the x over n, where a is the y-intercept, b is the multiplier, and the interval is n, how often that multiplier gets fully applied. So first things first, we've got a 45% decrease, as I talk about in all my percents videos. For a percent increase, you do 1 plus p over 100. For a decrease, you do 1 minus p over 100. So let's jump to Desmos real quick. And I never do this in my head. It's like, what if you mess it up, right? It's so easy to mess up, especially when you're nervous. Everyone says, oh, I could do it in my head, but trust me, you shouldn't. So because it says decrease, I type in 1 minus 45 over 100. If it said increase, I would do 1 plus, but because it says decrease, 1 minus 45 over 100. And I see that the multiplier is 0.55. So B is 0.55. So let's write that down. And let me come back over here. And it says for every increase in the value of x by 1. That's just telling you that the interval is 1. That's how often it happens. So I'm going to put a 1 where the n goes. And this part here is just a point using function notation. Q of 0 equals 14. In other words, that's the point 0, 14. X is 0, right? So that's a y-intercept. Oh, very helpful. So the y-intercept, which I referred to as A, is 14. So we will put 14 out in front here, and we get y equals 14, 0.55, and then x divided by 1 is just x. And that gives us answer choice C. You'll kind of notice though, guys, you really only needed to know that to get this one right, you really only needed to know that the multiplier was 0.55. So like that's really crucial. You see all these other ones are vastly wrong. So understanding percents, super important for the test. Okay, question 9. So I go over this in great detail in my Ottacento's number 13 and number 16. They're called, one's called basic quadratics, one's called advanced quadratics. Definitely go check those out. Just gonna assume you've already watched that. So this, when it says how many minutes does it until it reaches the surface of the ocean. So the surface, the feet, or the depth below the surface in meters, that's the y. So it wants to know when, essentially when y is 0. In other words, x-intercepts. So we're going to find the x-intercepts, and to do that, we're going to make y equal to 0. So 0 equals negative 1/55th, x plus 19, x minus 35. And I look at the core factors and use the zero product property. So negative 1/55th, can that ever be equal to 0? No, it can't. So we don't really care about him. We do care about these ones. These two can both be equal to 0. So x plus 19 equals 0. I solve that equation and I get x equals negative 19. X minus 35 equals 0. I'm going to now add 35 to both sides, and I get x equals 35. And the question says, which makes intuitive sense, minutes after collecting a sample. We can't go backwards in time, so it says x is greater than 0. So the negative answer we throw out, and we keep the positive answer, which is 35. We can also do this on Desmos. Let's go do that. Okay, so I just typed this in exactly as it was written, and I'm just going to zoom out, and I'm going to click on the x-intercepts. And I see that I get negative 19 and 35. Remember, we only care about the 35 one. Honestly, I go over this in my Desmos videos, guys. It might make sense to just put x is greater than 0 in curly brackets at the end, so that it just looks like numbers that make sense. X is positive. And you see, oh, it's like that's how deep they are, and then they get closer and closer to the surface. It's kind of inverted what our sense is of a submarine coming up. But if you think about it, it makes sense. Okay, question 10. So the volume of a cube is equal to S, the side length or edge length, cubed. That's not on the reference sheet. That's just something you want to know. So for this cube, the volume is 68 cubed. And that gives us 314,432. And the volume of a sphere, that's actually on the reference sheet. I suppose you don't need to memorize that, is 4/3 pi r cubed. And I'm going to do 4/3 pi. They even tell us the radius. That's really convenient. 34 cubed. And let's see what that gives us. And then I might round it as well. Okay, I'm getting 164,636 about. And the sphere is inside the cube. So, I mean, this is like a terrible drawing, but you can kind of imagine it's like we have a ball inside this like little tissue box. So we want the volume not taken up by the sphere that's in the cube. So we're going to subtract them. So 314,432 minus, I'm getting about 149,795 using the exact decimals, 0.78. And that's about 149,796, which is answer choice A. Again, we just subtracted them. I think also it might be easier to just type this stuff into Desmos, which isn't really that important, but let me go over it real quick. Okay, so I don't know, but just spitballing. How about we do cube equals 68 cubed, and then S for sphere equals 4/3. You can type in pi for pi, and then r cubed, so it's 34 cubed, and then I can do cube minus sphere. And I get the same answer, about 149796. Okay, question 11. I'm pretty sure this is a quadratic equation. So I'm just gonna like distribute everything. So x times x plus 1, that is x squared plus x minus 56 equals, and the right side is 4x squared minus 4 times -7, -28, so minus 28x. And now I'm just gonna get all this to one side. I don't know, I kind of like making the x squared positive, so why don't I move this stuff over here? I don't know, that just seems easier to me. Whatever you want to do, it'll come out the same. So it'll give you the same answer. So I'm gonna subtract and add everything so that it's 0. So I subtract x squared, 4x squared minus x squared is 3x squared. Then I'm gonna subtract x and I get negative 29x. I'm going to add 56 to both sides, and I get plus 56. A is 3. B is negative 29. And C is 56. Ax squared plus bx plus c. And now it wants to know the sum of the solutions, so I don't need to go and actually find the solutions. I just need to find their sum. So I'm going to use one of Vietta's formulas, which I go over in my Ottocento on basic quadratics, Ottocento number 13. Really important, you have to know these formulas by heart. So the one that's involved in this question is sum equals negative b over a. So the sum of the solutions is equal to negative b over a, so negative 29 over 3. Negative 29 is just 29, so I get 29 over 3. You can check on a calculator. I don't think that simplifies. So the answer is 29 over 3. I wonder if we could figure it out using Desmos. Let's go try it. Okay, so how feasible this kind of is to do depends on how the solutions come out. So first off, this is not a messy equation. So I just typed it in exactly. And I click on it, and I see the solutions are 2.666 repeating and 7. So I'll call the first one S, and that's 2.66666. And I don't know, let's just see what that is first. If I type in a bunch of 6s, I get 8/3. And then this one is 7. So for the sum, we're going to do 8/3 plus 7, which is 29/3. We get the same thing. Okay, question 12. So I think this is going to be far easier to do using guess and check on Desmos. So let's go do that. Okay, so I got the inequality typed in. Now I'm going to make a table. 3, 5, 7. They're all 3, 5, 7. That's convenient. And this one is 20, 32, and 44. So all three of these, it seems they lie on a dashed line, which is not part of the solution set. If that were a solid line, that would be part of the solution set. So A is wrong. Let's look at the next choice. Okay, this is choice B. You can see that 2 of those points are in the solution set, the shaded ones, the top and the bottom. But the one in the middle is kind of outside the solution set. So this one is no good. All 3 have to be in the solution set. B is wrong. This is choice C. All 3 points are in the solution set. So C looks good. That's our answer. Let's see what's wrong with choice D. Okay, choice D is definitely wrong. All 3 points are inside in the white. They're outside the solution set. C is our answer. Okay, question 13. I have a short. I'm going over this entire concept in like a minute. It's called equation of a circle. Definitely go watch that. So the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Is the equation in that form? Well, it certainly looks like it is. It looks exactly like that. So what we do is define the center. We circle these 2 numbers. here, -5 and -3, but we change the sign. So the center is 5, 3. Lots of people would mess that up. And then here we have 16. So the radius is the square root of that number on the right because this is r squared. So we take the square root of 16 and we get 4. Now the question wants the diameter. So the diameter is double the radius. So 2 times 4 is 8. You could figure this out pretty quickly on Desmos. Let's go do that. Okay, guys, I just want to be clear. I'm just doing this for the sake of thoroughness. This is not faster. Like, you should not do this. You should just do it by hand, at least for this one. There might be a problem in the future where this is more helpful. So I'm going to find the north and southmost points. I'm just going to double click on them and then export them. And I'm going to call the top one north. And then I'll call the bottom one south. And the diameter is the distance between those two diameter endpoints. So distance n, comma, s. And we get 8. Okay, question 14. I go over problems like this in great detail with a worksheet that you can download and complete yourself in my video, Ottocento number 23, Discriminant and Linear Quadratic Systems. Definitely go check that out. I'm just going to assume you've already watched that. Okay, so first, it's already in standard form, a squared plus bx plus c, so we're good there. I'm going to identify a, b, and c. A is -9, b is 30, and c is just c. Well, the question tells us that the equation has exactly one solution. This tells us that the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, must be equal to 0. So I'm going to start putting everything in. So 30 squared minus 4 times -9, that's a, times c, which is just c. And what is 30 squared? 900, right? Okay, 900. -4 times -9 is 36, so this is plus 36c. And now we just solve. So subtract 900 from both sides, I get 36c equals -900. And -900 divided by 36 is -25. And that gives us choice C. We're going to go over how to do it on Desmos, but I can't stress enough, guys, these problems get way harder. So just because you had an easy time with this one doesn't mean you're going to be able to get some of the hardest questions they ask on this. So definitely go check out that video I was talking about. All right, let's look at Desmos. Okay, guys, so as I talk about my Desmos videos, whenever there's solutions, like how many solutions, it's asking us about the nature of the solutions, I like to break the equation up into a system. So y equals left-hand side, y equals right-hand side. So you can see that's what I did. Y equals what's on the left, y equals 0, which is on the right. Now I'm just going to guess and check the answers. So C equals 3. Okay, that has 2 solutions, like right there. We want 1 solution, so that's no good. Let's try C equals 0. Still 2 solutions, no good. Let's try -25. Oh, wait. That looks like exactly 1 solution. That's what we want. Okay, so that's probably the answer. Let's make sure D is wrong. So D equals -53. And you see that doesn't touch the blue at all. So that has 0 solutions. So C is our answer. So even if you didn't know this, you could get this one right, but you could get student produced response or more challenging roundabout questions where you have to do it by hand. So please make sure you study the discriminant. Okay, question 15. So I go over a concept we're going to use here in my Ottocento number 11 SOHCAHTOA. Definitely go check that out if you haven't already. Okay, so we're going to start making a drawing. And I'm going to label it such that y is the right angle because it says that. So x, y, and z. And they tell us the measure of angle z is 33 degrees. I go over this in the video. You don't need to go and find this other angle. You can just use the one they gave you. It's almost always what they want you to do. It's not really a math thing. That's just how standardized tests work. Okay, so it says the length of YZ is 26 units. So it wants us to find the area of a triangle. The formula for the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. When you have a right triangle, the easiest way to find the base and the height is to find the 2 legs. So you see like the part that forms the L. And you'll notice we're missing that side xy. So I'm going to call that little x. We really need that side. So I'm going to relate these three pieces of information using a trig ratio. Well, which trig ratio should I use? Well, if this is my angle of interest, this side is the opposite. This side across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. And this side is the adjacent. So it looks like I have opposite and adjacent labeled. So that's OA. So I should use tangent TOA in SOHCAHTOA. So I'm going to write tangent of 33 degrees equals x over 26. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by 26, and I get x equals 26 tan of 33. And that is our missing side. So I'm going to label that here. 26 tan 33. And now we're ready to find the area. So I'm going to do area equals 1/2 base times height. So the base is 26 and the height is 26 tan 33. And let's see, we can clean that up a little bit. So tan 33 is just tan of 33. So I've got 1/2 times 26 times 26. That is 338. So I'm getting an area of 338 tan of 33. And you'll notice the question wants us to write it as K tan of 33. So K tan of 33 degrees. And we notice that K is 338, which is our answer. Okay, question 16. So I highly suggest checking out my Ottocento number 1 on percents. I also have like 4 or 5 shorts on percents. They really help a lot, guys. Please go check those out. Percents is one of those things that students always struggle with because you don't really do a lot of it when you're like junior in high school, senior in high school. Anyway, so first things first, we're going to use the calculator to figure out these percent multipliers, 80% less and 30% greater. So why don't we jump to Desmos so you guys can see me type. And for 80% less, that's a decrease. So we're going to do 1 minus p over 100. So 1 minus 80 over 100. 1 minus 80 / 100. And I get 0.2. I'm just going to label that next to the question, and then you'll see where I'm going with this. Now we're going to do 30% greater, so 1 plus p over 100. So 1 plus 30 over 100, and that gives me 1.3. So I'll put that like right here. All right, let's go back to the question. Now we're going to do words to math very carefully. So the sale price of the shirt is 80% less than the regular price. Okay, so how about S for sale price? S equals 80% less. We said that's 0.2 times the regular price. How about I call that R? Now I'm going to do the sale price is 30% greater, again, is then the store's cost. So how about we call the cost, I don't know, C? So I'm going to say S equals 1.3 C. And now they tell us the regular price of the shirt, which we called R, is 11.7. They say that at the beginning. So I can put this in here and quickly figure out the sale price. So 0.2 times 11.7 is 2.34. So now that I know that that's 2.34, I can come down to the second equation and write 2.34 equals 1.3C. And if I divide both sides by 1.3, I get the store's cost is $1.80, which is our answer. Okay, question 17. So I have a very detailed video going over this. It's called Ottocento number 22, Triangle Proofs. I'm just going to assume you've already watched that. Please go watch it if you haven't already. So this question is asking us about congruence. So the 4 main triangle rules are side, side, side for congruence, side, 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 angle, side, side, angle, and angle, angle, side. Let me get started making the picture. Give me 1 second. Okay, guys, so I just drew the picture with the given information. Really important. I go over this in the video. Make sure that you're following the order that's in the congruency statement. So like A, B, C, D, E, F. I like to start from the top and then go to the right, work my way around. Make sure that A goes with D, B goes with E, C goes with F. Looks good. Okay, so I like to check D first. So we can find that third angle, right? So 180 minus 41 minus 27. That would give us 112 degrees. So I'll keep that in the same color since we kind of technically know that. The angles of a triangle have to sum to 180. So I look at this and I've got 3 sets of congruent angles, essentially AAA. But none of the rules are AAA. Notice how they all have at least one S in them. That means you need at least one pair of sides. So this cannot be right. D is wrong. Let's try choice A. Okay, choice A says the measure of angle A, which as we just talked about, we already know. So this is kind of like, I'm very confused by that. It doesn't make any sense. We already know the measure of angle A. We don't need to be given it. So this is definitely wrong. It doesn't tell us anything new. Let's look at choice B. Okay, so I just came up with a random number for the length of side AB, about 5. And unfortunately, this doesn't really help us because we would need to know both the sides that go together, that their lengths are equal, and they didn't tell us DE at all. So B is wrong as well. Let's look at choice C. So choice C says the lengths of sides BC and EF. Let's say they were equal. They were both 5. Well, then we would be in business because I have angle, side, angle, and then the exact same thing over here. Angle, side, angle. 41 and 41 are the same, 5 and 5 are the same, and 27 and 27 are the same. So C gives us congruence by angle, side, angle, and that is our answer. Okay, question 18. I go over this in great detail, guys, in probably my best video and my most important video, Autocento number 6, Linear Systems, How Many Solutions. Please go watch it. I go over my process exactly, and there's a free worksheet you can download and practice on your own. All right, so first thing we need to do, I'm seeing like this question's kind of teeing me up for standard form, so I'm going to try to get things in standard form. AX plus BY equals C, DX plus EY equals F. So first things first, we don't want to have fractions when we do this. You don't really need to worry about this, but I think it's a good idea. So I'm going to clear the denominators. The only denominator we see is 6. I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by 6. So right now I have 48x minus 72y equals 30y plus 24. And then if I multiply that one by 6, I get 6ry equals 1 6 times 6 is 1 minus 6 times 16, which is 96x. Now I'm going to put both of them in standard form. So that's like, I want it to look like AX plus BY equals C. And so the top one is pretty good. Just this 30y is in the wrong spot. So I'm going to move him to the other side by subtraction. So I get 48x negative 72 minus 30. That's negative 102 minus 102y equals 24. And then for the bottom one, the only one that's out of place is this negative 96x. He should be on the other side, kind of like over here. So I'm going to add 96x to both sides, and I put it in order, 96x plus 6ry equals 1. Great. Now the question says we have no solution, and as I cover in my video, that means that A over D equals B over E, which is not equal to C over F. So I'll circle all the coefficients, make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. And we're going to write 48 over 96 equals negative 102 over 6r, which is not equal to 24 over 1. But you guys notice it doesn't care what it's not equal to. It cares what we want to find r. So that last part for this question isn't that important. Might be important for another question, but it's not that important for this one. All right, now we can just cross multiply and divide. So 6 times 48, that's 288r. And then that is equal to 96 times negative 102. That's negative 9792. Divide both sides by 288. And I get r is equal to negative 34. I don't suggest relying on Desmos to get the answer, because the answer could be like a messy fraction, like 11/7 or something. But we can use it to validate the answer, make sure we did it right before we move on. So let's go do that. Okay, so I typed in the two equations exactly as they were written at the beginning of the problem. And r equals negative 34. We don't care about this little circle graph. We can hide that. Let's zoom in. And it certainly looks like those lines are parallel, so they have no solution. So that means we did a good job. Really, the only thing I want to reflect on here is that for this question, I suppose we really didn't need to multiply this by 6 that much, simply because the 1/6, which was the constant, didn't really matter that much for the question, as we were talking about before. But besides that, this is how I would tackle it on test day and then check it on Desmos. Okay, question 19. So my first inclination was to use the factor theorem to guess and check. But the problem is that's probably not going to work, because we have this like extra kind of constraint that b is an integer. So we probably have to think about the factors more conceptually. So do you see how, first things first, all these answer choices, they all have 3x squareds, they all have 14b's, and the only difference is this x term in the middle. So if you will, I'm going to rewrite it as 3x squared plus question mark x plus 14b, because they all kind of resemble that form, right? So what I'm going to do now is they tell me that x plus 2b is a factor. So I'm going to write that like this. And now I'm going to think about distribution like foiling. So the two first terms multiplied together, so the two first terms, so the one that goes here and the one that goes here, will give us 3x squared. Well, 3x squared divided by x is 3x. So that means there must be a 3x right here. Now, the constant term, this part here, is determined by multiplying the two last terms. So this one times this one. So the question is, what times 2b gives me 14b? Well, 14b divided by 2b is 7. So I can put a plus 7 there. And now I have both of the factors. And all I had to do was think about how the distribution plays out. So we can now expand this guy by foiling. And we get, so 3x times x, that's 3x squared, as we were talking about. And then outer is 3x times 2b, that's 6bx, so plus 6bx. Then we'll do inner plus 7 times x, so that's 7x. And then last, that is 7 times 2b, and that is 14b. And now we can compare this using something I talk about in, I believe it's Ottocento number 14, something like that. It's called matching coefficients and clearing denominators. We can match this to every single one of the answer choices using guess and check. So how about I still just call it question mark? So the x squareds are the same, so that doesn't really help. The constants are the same, so that doesn't really help. But we can learn about the x, right? So let's look at these x terms and match the coefficients. So 6b, 7, and then on the other side we have what I just called question mark. So 6b plus 7 must be equal to question mark. So if I solve for b here, I get 6b equals question mark minus 7. And if I divide both sides by 6, I get b equals question mark minus 7 over 6. So the correct answer should have a coefficient in here that will give me an integer value of b. So let's do 7 minus 7 over 6. That gives me 0. But notice how it says we should have a positive integer. 0 is not positive. So this one is wrong. Now let's do the second one. 28 minus 7 divided by 6. That gives me 7 halves, or 3.5. That is not an integer. Got to be a whole number. All right, now let's do 42 minus 7, and then divided by 6. That gives me 35 sixths. That is also not an integer, positive integer. So let's try 49 minus 7 divided by 6. That gives me 7, which comes out nice and evenly, no fraction or decimal after that. And that is a positive integer. So the answer is D. Okay, question 20. So I have a great short that goes over this exactly. It's called equilateral triangles. Beyond that, you might want to watch my Ottocento on special right triangles if you're kind of rusty on special right triangles. I just pulled this diagram from that video to save myself some writing and explanation power. So anyway, so in that formula, I go over how equilateral triangle, all the sides are the same, and every angle is 60, 60, 60, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. The formula for the perimeter is 3s. So if the perimeter is 624, which is what they tell us, and I divide both sides by 3, the side length is 208. Now, if I draw a picture, all the angles are 60, but as you can see in the diagram, on the left there, it gets split by the height into 2 equivalent 30, 60, 90 triangles. So if this side length is 208, and that is equal to 2x, well, if 2x equals 208, 208 divided by 2 is 104. That means x is 104. So this side here is 104. And yes, that will always happen for equilateral triangles. See how this side is still 208, but it got split into 2 equal parts? That's really important to understand. Anyway, so as we talked about, x is 104. So that means the height is 104 root 3. And the question says that the height is k root 3. So if I write them side by side, hopefully you guys can see that the number in front of square root 3, which is 104, is our answer. And that is how we do the question. Okay, question 21. So I go over this in great detail in my video called Ottocento number 9, Basic Statistics. Most specifically, there's a segment of that video called optimization. So you want to go watch that. Make sure you, watch the whole thing, but because there might be other stuff in there you don't know, but this is covered in the segment called optimization. Okay, so first things first, I noticed that it says smallest possible difference between the means. So do you see how it's the exact same frequency distribution, just data set A has bigger numbers? So the mean of A is going to be bigger than the mean of B. So you could think about it as like, I talk about this in the video, you could think about it as like 2 friends with different amounts of money. Let's call A, data set A, like the wealthy friend, and then data set B, the friend with less money. And if you want to find the smallest possible difference between them, you want to take the smallest amount of money that one friend has and the biggest amount of money that the friend with less money has. So here, I want to minimize the bigger data set and then maximize the smaller data set. And that will give me the smallest possible difference, so that they're as close together as possible. If you wanted the largest possible difference, you would do the opposite. You would maximize the bigger data set and then minimize the smaller data set. Anyway, I digress. So now that we figured that out, we just need to label the histogram and compute the means, which is hopefully the easier part. So I'm going to find the smallest integer in each of these bins. So include the left, exclude the right. So the first one is 20. The next one is 30. The smallest the next one is 40. And the smallest the next box is 50. And then all these numbers are 3, 4, 7, 9. Okay, the frequencies are the same in this one, 3, 4, 7, 9. But the largest integer, that's kind of tricky. So the largest integer, you include the left, exclude the right. So lots of people would say it's 20, but really it's 19 because 20 is in the next box. Include the left, exclude the right. So 19, 29, 39, 49. And now we have everything we need. That was probably the hardest part. Now we're going to go to Desmos and just compute the mean, just like I go over in that video and in my shorts. Okay, guys, so you might have missed this. I don't need to compute the sample size for either of them. It says that there are 3 integers. So I'm going to do lowercase a equals slash. There's 23 integers, so the bottom. And then the sum will be 3 times 20 plus 4 times 30 plus 7 times 40 plus 9 times 50. Okay, so I get that number, which is 910 over 23. And now I'll do little b equals same thing, 23 on the bottom, because they have the same number of data points. But now I'll do 3 times 19 plus 4 times 29 plus 7 times 39 plus 9 times 49. And that is 887 over 23. And now it's the difference, so I just subtract them, a minus b, which is 1. And that gives us answer choice B. So you really got to make sure when you watch my video, guys, you really got to make sure you know how to read these bins when they're touching. Very confusing, the 19, 29, 39, that stuff. Make sure you know how to read those bins. And then also make sure you understand what to minimize and what to maximize to achieve the smallest possible difference or the largest possible difference. Okay, question 22. I covered this at the tail end of my Ottocento number 20 probability and two-way tables. There's a very funny example with a very special content creator called Satel Tutoring. Definitely go watch that. It's very funny. Anyway, so as I go over the expected value, when you extrapolate a probability to a population, the expected is equal to the proportion, the sample proportion, times capital N, the population size. So there's a total of 803 voters. And then the population size, this is your capital N, is 6424. So I'm going to do the proportion for Angel Cruz. So that is 483 over 803 out of a total of 803. I'm going to multiply it by the population, 6424. And I can just do that on a calculator. So 483 times 644. I'm getting 3864 expected votes for her. And now I'm going to do 320 over a total of 803 for the proportion of Terry Smith. And I'm going to again multiply it by 6424. And I get 2560 votes. Now, really tricky, this is probably where most of the people messed up. Lots of people probably did that part right, is it says how many votes would Angel Cruz be expected to win. So it's not asking how many Angel Cruz is getting. It's asking about how much she would win. So we have to find the difference between them. So 3864 minus 2560 is equal to 1304, which gives us answer choice B. Okay, that completes the lesson. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more digital SAT math content. And if you're interested in my tutoring services, the link to my website will be in the description. I tutor SAT math and all math subjects from about 7th grade to AP/early college level. Thanks for stopping by, and good luck studying.